Haley Robson. She is one of the Epstein survivors who spoke out on Capitol Hill along with other Epstein survivors, pushing for the release of all the Epstein files. You saw her in our preamble speaking so passionately in front of Capitol Hill just last week. And Haley, I appreciate your time. And, shouldn't get into how anybody voted, but in a world where this is an issue that should be apolitical and nonpartisan, I will just note for people, because you've been open about this, that you're a registered Republican and you voted for President Trump. So in that context, right, you're not coming with some political point of view against him, right? You're coming as a survivor of Jeffrey Epstein. And I want to give you a chance, Haley, to just explain how you feel when Trump today gets asked about the Epstein birthday book and he calls it a, quote, dead issue multiple times.
A dead issue to who, first of all? Your first mistake was assuming that you knew your voters. That was your first mistake. Your second mistake is now standing double down on what you said about it being a hoax. I'm not coming with hostility. I'm not angry. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I am disgusted. I am not even coming from a place of anger. I'm just coming from a place of how can we move on when the leader of the free world keeps calling this a hoax when indeed it is not a hoax. And then it's just kind of this feeling of like you're throwing everything at the wall to let it stick, and now you're an FBI informant, and now you're not an FBI informant, it's back to being a hoax. It's very confusing, and it's appalling. I'm appalled. It gets worse and worse every day.
It is shocking. I mean, and I guess I know you're exhausted and reliving these things is not what you want to do, but you're choosing to do it to make sure that we get to the truth and we get to justice. So people understand, so the president understands, if he hears you, Haley, you were 16 years old when you explain how a classmate recruited you. You said basically, oh, there's an old guy, he wants a massage, a rich guy, $200. You give him a massage, you get $200. And Epstein then, you say, abused you, gave you an ultimatum that you had to bring a girl to him every day. And you spoke at the Capitol about how you ended up in that situation, a 16-year-old girl, where you felt you didn't have a choice because of his wealth and his power and who you were as a 16-year-old girl. So what is your reaction to all of this?
Well, first, let's address he hears me. The president is hearing me. I think that communication is key when it's followed with comprehension. So I'm not sure that he's comprehending what I am trying to communicate to him. Obviously, being a 16-year-old girl, not knowing how to navigate a situation, the one that I was put in, it's, my younger self has become the woman that I needed in that moment. And I think for any 16-year-old, for any child to try to navigate that on their own you're going to have failure. You're going to have mistakes. There's no way any woman, let alone a 16-year-old child, is going to understand what's happening in that moment.
Yeah.
And so it's devastating going through that, when you're 16 and having to live with that abuse, and then coming out publicly after 17 years of being silenced and trying to get people to understand, and not just the president, not just the administration, not just the politicians, but trying to get people in the country to understand not only what we were put through, but the people that we're up against, the system that we're up against.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's been a failure on both sides.
So, President Trump, the note signed with his name in Epstein's birthday book says, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. May every day be another wonderful secret. And we don't know what that means. I mean, it's disgusting and crude, but we don't know what it means. But Republican Congressman Tom Massey, who is out there pounding the table, Haley, as you know, to get answers and to get to the truth in a bipartisan way. He is speaking out about his Republican colleagues who are not going along with him. There are a few, all women, who are, but the vast majority of them are not. And here's what he is saying as to why.
I don't think my colleagues are happy about covering up for pedophiles, but that's what's happening. And it's so sick and twisted. The reason they're doing it is because they're terrified of President Trump's political machine.
Yeah. You've been working with Chairman Comer, and there have been times you and I have talked about that partnership, and you said you've trusted him on subpoenas and you guys have worked together. I want to get to that in a moment. I want to just find out now, we're 24 hours after all these documents that you got. I know you're going to get more, but in the big dump that you had overnight, have you learned anything more, Congressman, that answers who was involved with Epstein?
Well, I think the single most important thing in finding is that it's clear that Donald Trump's assertion that somehow this birthday note was a mystery or some sort of fabrication or lie, that's been proven to be untrue. I mean, the president essentially has been lying to the American public about the existence of this note. Clearly, he drew and wrote the note. Clearly, Republicans all across Congress today are bold-faced lying to the American people. The president should fess up and admit that he wrote the note. It's also quite a disturbing note, this idea that they had some type of special secret between the two of them. The drawing itself, very concerning. And on top of that, we now see this book that was compiled by Ghislaine Maxwell of all of these drawings, of which many are incredibly disturbing, of Jeffrey Epstein interacting with young girls, children, in some of these drawings. This is someone, by the way, that said Donald Trump was his best friend for over 10 to 15 years. So why the current president of the United States was so close to a serial predator and sex trafficker, I think is an important question, and which is why we need to get all of the Epstein files released to the committee and to the public.
Have you seen any evidence of Trump's involvement or knowledge beyond the drawing? I mean, we know he's been on the Epstein plane. They were friends. We do know all of those things, but I mean in the documents that you have.
Well, remember, we barely have any documents. I mean, the only reason we have the Epstein estate documents and a tiny sliver of the actual Epstein documents is because Democrats on the Oversight Committee have forced subpoenas and votes that Republicans didn't want to take. And so to answer your question, we need to actually get access to the full Epstein documents, which we have subpoenaed from the DOJ that they're refusing right now to send over. They are under authority, legal authority by the Congress to get us those documents. The first batch of documents that we got from the DOJ, which happened a couple of weeks ago, we know that 97% of those documents were already publicly available information.
Yep.
The documents we got yesterday from the Epstein estate, we worked with subpoena just directly with the Epstein estate. Those documents contain a lot of new information, which we're, of course, right now reviewing. Now, later this week, we have a team going to New York to also meet with the Epstein estate to review additional financial records. But we need all the Epstein documents now to be able to answer all the questions that we have.
Let's bring in a member of the Oversight Committee now. Democratic Congressman Stephen Lynch of Massachusetts joins us. Congressman, thanks for being here. What are staffers seeing this morning from the Epstein estate? And based on what was already turned over, what do you think is most important for your investigation?
Well, we want the full files, all the documents. We think the evidence should guide us. And so just like the birthday book that was as your reporters have indicated, was bound 20 years ago, we think that there's a story to tell here, and there are pieces of evidence that will inform us, and I think as well inform the American public as to whether Congress is sincerely and genuinely doing its job to get justice for the women that were abused in this case.
I want to play some video we just got in showing those staff members heading into this law office where they are going to be meeting with members of the Epstein estate, officials and lawyers, to look at these documents. So we know they've arrived. Meantime, President Trump says the birthday letter isn't real. So do many of your GOP colleagues. And now the White House says that they would support bringing in a handwriting expert to analyze the apparent Trump's signature. Is that a serious proposal in your view?
I think they'll try whatever they can do to deflect this investigation. It certainly looks very, very similar. And again, these books were bound 20 years ago. So, and we have public statements by President Trump that they were friends and that, he was a great guy and all these are all connections between President Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And we have more and more evidence coming out about that relationship. So that's very important, and we want to get to the bottom of this.
One Republican who's not buying the president's story is Congressman Thomas Massie. Here's what he said about the birthday letter.
I'm not a forensic expert, but it looks like his signature.
The White House has denied that. They've said that it's not his. The whole thing is a hoax. I mean, are they hurting their own case here?
It's a hoax, 10, 20 years in the making. If the letter is a hoax, it seems like. Hopefully they could do some kind of forensics on it and figure that out so we don't have to debate the knowable. But I think it's a distraction, really, from what Ro Khanna and I are trying to accomplish.
So he points out how absurd the hoax argument seems related to the letter. I mean, if these Republicans all believe it's a fake, why isn't someone investigating the alleged forgery then? Isn't that a serious matter, trying to frame or impersonate the president like this?
You would think so, but there's nothing there for them to investigate. I mean, the custody of the letter in itself, gives validity to that piece of evidence. So we'll just keep digging. And I really do give great credit to Mr. Massie and to Mr. Khanna and their effort on the discharge petition. We still have several Republican members who voted for.
What you're seeing there are people just clearly go out and call Trump the lying SOB that he is. And it's because he's insulting them. He's insulting them, but them meaning the actual victims. They're being insulted by this. But we got to remember also everybody else in the world, their intelligence is being insulted because they're being told after Donald Trump made a big deal about this scandal that not only is it, one, no longer a big deal, but two, that it's a hoax. Basically saying Jeff was innocent, Ghislaine was innocent, any of their associates were innocent, and it's all made up. That's the, and maybe that's not what Trump would say if you cornered him, but that's effectively what people are hearing, and reasonably so, when you call it a hoax, when you call these women liars and whatnot. And you're seeing this not just from Trump, but from like the MAGA world on like social media and whatnot. It's very quickly become, we have to fight for the justice of these women, to, the official narrative is largely correct, that Maxwell and Epstein were awful, but they acted alone, and he actually did end himself in prison. There was no conspiracy. But that was not calling the Epstein and Maxwell a hoax. That was very clearly saying it's real, but it actually was just them, and there's no list, and blah, 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 blah. And now it's a hoax. And that's why people are furious. Because you've scored political points, or tried to score political points, off suffering, and you did it with the binders, and you did it during the 2024 election. And now that, Donald, you're likely on the list in some capacity, now you're showing your true colors. The Republican Party doesn't give a damn about justice for women. They only give a damn about protecting powerful men that believe in their far-right ideology.